And hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Shabbat show. It's an honor to be with you again. What an incredible opportunity that we have every single week to see each other. Really, this is the highlight of my week, to be able to spend knowing that I can get to come into Shabbat with all of you and the different people from all over the world. And one of the highlights for me is being able to look at that chat and being able to see, whether it's through Facebook or through online, all the different people that are coming in from all parts of the world. That's the beauty of, I find, what's the most beautiful thing about the Jewish people. As different as we all may be, as diverse in where we are from as we all may be, we're all the same. We're all one, united under Hashem. And many times, like I say, whenever I travel and I end up in a shul and I feel off, I feel different, I feel like I'm not from this area, so many times I find myself pulling a siddur off the shelf, hearing the same davening, making the same kiddush, and being like, I'm at home. Today we have a very special show. And I want to share with you a little bit of what this show stands for. So some of you may or may not know, I come from an interesting background. My father comes from Aleppo, Syria. My mother comes from Munkach, which makes me a walking United Nation with better resolutions, right? I always say everything I eat either has rice or margarine. That's my life. And as a kid growing up, I grew up in a very Ashkenazi world. Today, it's a little different. But even when I was growing up, the schools, the groups, the whole thing, it was a very Ashkenazi-centric world. And though I look Ashkenazi a little bit, I can pass for it. I have Sephardi customs. I'm Sephardi. So I davened in a different minyan. I davened with a different prayer group. I had different customs. And I was a young kid in a school, and a couple of the older boys, I remember one time, were making fun of Sephardim. And I remember being offended. I felt different. I felt like it was unfair. I felt like I was embarrassed. Now I couldn't be prouder, but as a kid growing up, sometimes if you're not like everybody else. I'll never forget this. I went to the rabbi, and the rabbi said, everything fine? I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. He goes, what's going on? I told him what happened. And he said something so interesting, I'll never forget it. He said, have you ever noticed something interesting about Judaism? He said, God created the Jewish people, and he could have done it in any way. Imagine if you were building a nation. You were building a team. You're building anything. He could do it any way he wanted to. If you were building it, you'd probably pick exactly the person you want. You'd craft him perfectly. You'd put him in the safest, best location. And you'd provide everything that he or she needs to be the beginning of your nation. He tried that once, Adam and Eve. But then came the Jewish people later on. Put them in Egypt. And he brought them out. And finally, after bringing them out, you would think he would say, okay, this is what I want. But he doesn't. You know what he does? He makes 12 tribes with different flags. He makes Israelites and Levites and Kohanim priests. He says, you could do this and you could do this and you're from here and you're from here. Is he not asking for trouble? Like, you want to know why we have arguments? You know why we're not connected or united is because we're different. And not only that, the rabbi says to me, you ever notice how even Torah works? There's an oral law and everyone's got an opinion, and you read one line of Talmud and it's like everyone's fighting with each other. And you go to one person's house, they have this custom, they have that customs, and you don't see any rabbi saying, get rid of all your customs and do what this person does. A Sephardi eats rice on Pesach, an Ashkenazi doesn't. Isn't God asking for trouble? And the rabbi, I'll never forget, says to me, you know why he did that? Because he doesn't tolerate diversity. I said, he doesn't what? He goes, God doesn't tolerate diversity. He expects it. He built it. We don't tolerate diversity. We are built on diversity. Who we are as the fabric of our nation is diversity. There was never a moment in our history where there was a Jew that was the Jew. From the inception, we've always been diverse. Ashkenazim, Sephardim, where you're from. It feels off, he told me, because you're growing up in this world, but I want to tell you, there's no better or worse. We're supposed to be different. In fact, there are 12 gates for each different tribe, which is why there's this incredible law that synagogues should have 12 windows. That's why Jacob is the father of Israel. Jacob's name is Israel because he had 12 sons. Judaism didn't start with Isaac as one or Jacob as one. It started with the 12. We are a nation whose fabric is based on diversity. There is no one look that a Jew is. There is no one background where a Jew comes from. There is no one custom that is more Jewish. And in fact, there is no one Jew that can claim to be more Jewish than any other Jew in the world. That's the majesty of our people. And what we want to talk about today is diversity. We want to highlight different parts of our nation. And hopefully we'll do this for multiple weeks into the future, identifying different types of Jews and recognizing how the same we are and sensitizing ourselves to make sure that we are always being sensitive and empathetic and open, because if somebody doesn't look like us, the Jewish eyes, spiritual eyes, can't see what's in front because they have more to do with us than anyone in the world, any country, any nation. We're one. That's why we had the show. And today we're highlighting an incredible part of our nation, Jews of color. Incredible people, a part of our nation that we need to learn more about and to appreciate more so that we can fulfill our mission, which is being the nation that sees only the soul, to have a nation of spiritual eyes. So we've got an incredible lineup of guests, excited for what we have here. And we've got a great show. So stick with us. We've got Kahoot coming back. Last week we had made a move to go with something else. We got some real pushback, so thank you for the feedback. So there's Kahoot here, so let's get the games going on Kahoot. We've got an incredible group. We've got a prince, a former prince, that is going to be one of our guests coming up pretty soon. We've got Elisa Klein coming up, an incredible woman that I had that opportunity to spend time with. We have Rabbi Daniel Price here, Rabbi Sittner from Toronto. We got a new rescue, Jamie Geller. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got a great show coming for you. This show is sponsored to the Lilulei Nishamas, for the honor of the soul of Batsheva Blima Bas Harav Moshe Yosef Halevi Esther, who is an inspiration to her family, her friends, and Klal Yisrael. A couple things before we get started. First is one-on-ones. It's been growing wonderfully. One-on-one is a program that we have in which we have the opportunity to learn one-on-one with different parts of our nation. You get to pick an incredible learning partner and be able to learn with them. I'm not sure if we've got a video. Do we want to show the ad for the one-on-one? My Project Inspire team. There we go.
My name is Ali Janonsky.
My name is Desi Rotenberg.
I'm Navin Burns in Arizona.
I've been part of Project Inspire for almost a year now.
I'm from Brazil, and I have been a part of the one-on-one learning program for over a year now.
I just didn't have a Jewish education. My parents are from the former Soviet Union, where it was illegal to learn.
I grew up in a family where unfortunately Judaism and the culture was not passed down, so I didn't know anything coming into this program.
We talk about everything from life to liberty to the pursuit of happiness.
We started learning once a week. She has made such a huge impact in my life, and she just really met me where I was in a totally non-judgmental way.
So whatever comes up with relation to Judaism and Torah and Talmud and Mishnah and Kabbalah and anything, we just kind of talk about it and put it out there.
Project Inspire has enriched my life by enabling me to set aside 30 minutes to an hour each week and dedicate time to learning about different schools of thought.
If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't know how to read Hebrew.
It's really beautiful to see how Judaism shapes my everyday life, where I would have never even realized that before.
So I highly recommend getting matched up with a one-on-one partner if you are looking for a personalized way to stay connected with Judaism in your busy life.
I'm very much looking forward to growing in my Judaism and my faith and having a stronger impact on the world around me because of it. Thank you, Project Inspire, and I can't thank you enough, so thanks.
So if you haven't yet signed up for one-on-ones, please do so. It's such an incredible program. You could always check it out on 97,000. Text one-on-one to 97,000. You go to projectinspire.org and find out the information here. Before we talk about the next program, I'll let the Inspire crew get ready for the next program we're going to show everybody. I want to give a couple of shout outs. Jacob Kahn, shout out to you. Rochelle Kersner, shout out to Rochelle and Michael Kersner from Toronto. Thank you so much. Ken Salkova, Shabbat Shalom to you. Ken from Skokie, Illinois. And a special hi to Rivka and Patriots Rock, one of our top performers in Kahoot. To Henya, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to the Cohens in Macon, Georgia. Shabbat Shalom to Jason Kessler in New Rochelle. To the Popels in Miami. To the Novaks in Toronto. Rivka Tyler, Shabbat Shalom to you. We're pulling for you this week. I know you're in Baltimore, but we know that you're a huge Patriots fan. Patriots Rock. She's Patriots Rock, by the way. You'll see her most likely in Kahoot today. Heidi Malka, the Arizonian living in Chicago. Shabbat Shalom to you. Shabbat Shalom to Janice Fitzgerald in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Shabbat Shalom to Ayala Epstein in Toronto, Canada. To the Hess family in Fairlawn. To the Rubens in Richmond. To the Silvers in Highland Park. To the Francos in Brooklyn. Jeff Rothman from Thornhill. Michelle Reichner from Suffolk, New York. Okay, we're going to move on a little bit. We'll keep on giving those Shabbat Shaloms. Bring them in, please. We love being able to wish each other Shabbat Shalom. We've got a new program coming up this week. It's called, it's a MindFlex program. I'll be hosting it. This is a new program that we're launching. I hope that you guys enjoy it. It's an interactive learning session. I'm hosting it for the first week this week. It's called Issues That Matter. We're going to dig down into real issues and create breakout rooms where it's not just a class. We're going to have the beginning with a presentation. Then we're going to have actual breakout rooms where we get to learn sources and delve deeper into real big issues. And it's so critical that during this time, we have a night that we can go to, we can hear each other speak. We can really get underneath it. This week, we're going to talk about God for grown-ups. So we're going to have a real conversation about God. Hope you get to come. Hope you get to join us. And I'll be hosting it this week. So I hope I get to see you there. And thanks so much for tuning in. Okay, I want to introduce our first guest. It's an interview that I was able to handle this week. I had the opportunity to interview our guest. He's living in Israel. His name is Rabbi Natan Gamedze. He was born to the royal family of Swaziland. And from that moment of being a prince, as he got older, started this incredible journey of Judaism that took him to Israel, to Judaism, and now through this incredible journey, he is a rabbi and teacher of Judaic studies in the northern city of Safat, where he lives with his wife and son. Listen to this incredible man and the story of Rabbi Natan and how he became who he became. So it's an honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. You have such an incredible background. It's something that is so unique to our people. And as part of the royal family of Swaziland, you began your life in a very different way than most people that I've met personally. So can you share with us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in Israel?
Well, that is a very long story because I could give you a shortened version, and that is I was studying at university in South Africa, in Johannesburg. I'm a language major, so I studied French, German, and Italian. And one day I found myself very bored in an Italian class. And I didn't find that the lecturer was saying something so interesting. So I looked around myself to see what other people were doing. And there was someone sitting to my right who was writing backwards from right to left. And I looked at him and I looked at what he was writing. I said, that's not Italian. What is that? And after the class, I asked him, I said, tell me, what were you doing there? He said, I was doing my Hebrew homework. He was a Jewish person. So I thought, wow, if I could write like that, that would really be fancy. So I enrolled to study Hebrew. And after the first half a year, we had learned the basics of the grammar, the Hebrew grammar. And then we had what they called language laboratory sessions, where they had a native Israeli help us with pronunciation and comprehension of texts.
And this is all in the university.
Witwatersrand. Witz, it's called for short. Sorry. It's called Witz for short. And the first text that I remember I was sitting in this language laboratory with my headphones on, and all of a sudden I hear this Middle Eastern music in the background, and I sort of relax. And all of a sudden I realize that in the music there's somebody saying something. So I concentrated more, and I realized what he was saying. I heard the words, "Vayhi achar hadavarim ha'ele, va'elokim nisa et Abraham, vayomer elav, Abraham, vayomer hineni, vayomer kachna et bincha et yechidcha, asher ahavta et Yitzchak, velech lecha al eretz ha-moriya, va'aleu sham le'ola al achad ha'arim asher omar elecha." These are lines that come up in Shacharis, just after the Korbanos, or just before the Korbanos. When I heard this, it's Akedas Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac. When I heard that, there was something in me that it sounded familiar.
And you had never heard it before?
I'd never heard it.
But the first time you heard it, it felt like something.
It felt like it was telling me something very, very deep about myself. I said,
wow.
How can it be telling you something about yourself? You're not even Jewish, and at least at that time I wasn't. So I'll tell you what it felt like. It felt like I had lost my memory, and that this text that I was hearing in my ear was reviving my memory, and a memory which I didn't even know I had.
Wow.
So it was a very, very intense. It was really intense, and I felt more like Sherlock Holmes, which is one of the books that I used to read, detective books.
Right. Was there a moment where you came here and you were studying? What was the moment where you said, I have to take it from this is an interesting exercise, an intellectual exercise, an exercise of passion and meaning, I feel something, to I have to convert to be part of this people? Was there a moment for you when that happened?
Yes, indeed. What happened is that my friends who I knew from South Africa, they called me up while I was studying for my PhD in Hebrew. They called me up from South Africa, and they told me that they were coming to study at a yeshiva in Yerushalayim called Ol Sameach. And they said they wanted to see me. So I went over to see them, and I was really surprised at the way they looked, with their yarmulkes and tzitzit and all this. And they could see I was really puzzled. What's happened to these guys? And they invited me for dinner, and they said, how do you explain that a non-Jew brings Jewish people closer to their tradition? I looked at them and said, what are you talking about? They said, well, if it wasn't for you, we don't even know if we'd have become religious. We don't know if we'd have become from at all. But you introduced us to the Rambam, and it opened our whole world up. And we started going to Shiurim, and then they were studying Gemara in Yeshiva.
Wow.
So when I saw that, and they said, look, there's some classes open for anyone can come if they want to hear, about Jewish philosophy. You don't have to be Jewish to come and hear those. So I said, okay, I'll come and hear a few classes. So in I came, put on a yarmulke, sat in the back row, and all of a sudden, the rabbi started speaking. And I said, this is it. What I'd been searching for all this time. In other words, I knew there was something in the language, but I did not know what it was. All of a sudden, I made the incredible discovery that what I loved about the language was the Judaism in it. Because all that attracted me were Jewish books speaking about Judaism. That was like a sledgehammer.
Every time when people come in, they come from different backgrounds, they look different, they have different histories. How did you deal with challenge along the way? Did you feel it? And what was your approach towards dealing with the challenges that were in front of you?
Well, there are challenges and there are challenges. I felt that the surroundings that I was in were challenging for both myself and those that surrounded me, because I was really the only black person around, right? And it's true that not everyone treated me so nicely, from the surrounding neighborhoods. But with a history, having studied both my bachelor's and my master's in apartheid South Africa, what I felt in Israel was nothing compared to that, right? So that's a challenge on a personal level, which I found pretty difficult. But I used that energy to focus on my studies, studying Gemara, and I really got into it. And I think I always, since I was so sure that this is what Hashem wanted for me, I allowed all maybe comments that weren't so nice sometimes, I let them roll off my back.
What an incredible story he has, and there's so much more to that interview that I hope you guys get to see. Look out for it from Project Inspire. That interview is about 30 minutes with much more of the detail of the story. There's one part of the story that I hope you get to watch where he gets mad at Hashem for not making him a Jew after he realizes that he wants to be one, and he goes to Rome. And when he gets to Rome and he starts taking a tour around the Roman Empire, he keeps on thinking to himself, but what about what you did to the Jews? And he feels compelled to go back to Israel. And he gets into his room, he says, it's incredible, watch it. And he just says Shema Yisrael and realizes that he can't hold it back. Gets back on an airplane and goes to Israel and becomes a rabbi. And he's a legend in Or Sameach and his brilliance and what he's done. It's an incredible story that has to be watched and has to be understood. We have a great video coming up right now. Before we do that, I want to share a couple more Shabbat Shaloms. To Leah Perel, Shabbat Shalom to you. Aviva G, Shabbat Shalom. To Ozzy from Baltimore. Lisa Tendler, Esther from Baltimore, Shabbat Shalom to you. Rabbi Tzvi, Shabbat Shalom from the Kesslers. Leah and Richard, the Village Jewel, Shabbat Shalom to you. To Alan and Stacy Levingrad from South Maryland, Shabbat Shalom to you, and thank you for your kind words. Michelle Reichner, Shabbat Shalom. Michael and Leanda Rosenblatt from Share Tefillah of Toronto, Shabbat Shalom to you. And of course, to the Simons of Phoenix, Shabbat Shalom to you, and to Michelle and to Debbie from New York. Okay, time for this incredible video that really speaks about the diversity of Jews and the impact, especially on the state of Israel.
My name is Yael Gadia. I'm 19 years old. I'm from Sderot. My parents from Ethiopia. They came on Operation Salmon in 1991. I was 4 years old when all the bombs started. Two of my family relatives got hit by rockets. One of them was Yuval. He was 4 years old, and Dorit was 2 years old. I did my Shinshinim program in South Africa, Johannesburg. I was working with kids from grade 8 to 11, and I spoke about how it's to be Israeli, how it's to be Ethiopian Israeli, how it's to be a black Jew, because for them it's not obvious to be a black Jew. At the beginning they asked me, are you converted? Are you Zulu? Who are you and what are you doing here? And what you're doing here? Why you speak Hebrew? a dream that came true. I always wanted to be a young ambassador of Israel, to be the face of Israel. When people look at me, they can see the beauty of Israel. After the gap year, when I came back to Israel, I can say that the first time in my whole life, I felt Jewish. I feel that I need to go, that I have to go to give back to my people and be part of something big.
Our next guest is an incredible woman that I had the opportunity to interview this week as well. Her name is Elisa Bracha Klein. She's a social worker for the Oak Park Schools in Michigan. Prior to joining Oak Park Schools, Lisa worked for the Detroit Police Department's Victim Assistance Program, where she provided crisis intervention for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and secondary victims of homicide. Elisa has also worked for St. John Providence Eastwood Clinics as a therapist. She holds a bachelor's degree in journalism from Oakland University and a master's degree in social work from Wayne State University. Elisa has held leadership roles for several Metro Detroit Jewish organizations. It was an incredible interview, and I look forward to sharing it with each of you. Give us more about who you are so we can get to know you better.
Okay, so my name is Elisa Bracha, and I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and I am a Jew by choice. And so that's not something that I always offer up right away. I feel that sometimes people look at me and they say, oh, you're kind of interesting. What is your background? What is your story? And I try to get a little bit vulnerable just so people can understand where I'm coming from. And so my parents, along with myself, we all converted many years ago. And my parents are Reform. And then I took on being more religious over time. And then I had an Orthodox conversion myself. And then I am who I am today. So that's a little bit about me, just to start off, just a little bit. There's a longer story, but that's just like a little bit in a nutshell.
We appreciate the appetizer. It's always an honor to meet a Jew by choice, right? That means that you found something about our people that was so enticing that you came and you decided on your own that there's something you wanted more. Was there a moment along the way where you decided that was it like an aha, like you wanted to be part of it? Was it a slow growth? What was that moment where you chose us?
I think it was a slow process. I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood and I had a lot of Jewish friends. And so my days were spent with many different kids of different backgrounds, but mostly Jews. And I remember if it was, let's say, a Jewish holiday like Passover or something, my mom would make sure and my dad would make sure that those students or my friends would be keeping kosher Passover, right? And also, let's say if I had a birthday party at my school, my parents would also make sure that whatever that they were providing for the snacks for my birthday, that it was kosher. So that was like the first step into being exposed to the Jewish community. And my parents were exposed to the Jewish community when they were younger as well, growing up in Detroit. And then over time, my parents and I wanted something different, and we felt that Judaism was the truth, right? And so then that's how we ended up finding Judaism for ourselves. And so it was a process. It was a slow process. It was a gradual process. But then over time, we just happened to find it for ourselves. And so that's how it happened.
What an incredible approach. I think one of the most beautiful things that I find about Judaism, and I know that you've spoken about this, you've written about this, I've read a lot of your articles, which are wonderfully written, about being sensitive, being open, and just educating ourselves about the fact that the Torah, God, diversity isn't a thing that we have. It's a thing that we are built on, right? We are the most we are built to be diverse. God wants it to be a religion where everyone comes at it from a different perspective. And when people come at Judaism from different perspectives, it only enables all of us to be better and all of us to be a much greater nation. What have you found along your journey in which that has something that you have either encountered or agree with? And I know that you're, in many ways, you're providing, and I've read a lot of what you've written, and it provides people with an opportunity to understand people of different backgrounds, only so that we become better as human beings along the way.
So I think that in order for us to become better human beings along the way, it starts with just basically putting yourself in their shoes, right? And also knowing that there are things that makes us unique and makes us different, and not everybody's not the same, right? And so it's very important for us to know that and to treat people with respect and to treat people with kindness. And I think that's something that is hard for people to do nowadays, which is unfortunate, because that should be the first thing that we're doing.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one point. Another part is just also being vulnerable and asking the right questions, and to, know that like there are many people out there that are different, and they may not look like you, but at the end of the day, we're all created in the image of God.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think one of the things that are, I think people in general tend to connect to things that are like them, that sound like them, that agree with them. I think people have a general sense of hanging out with people that vote the way they vote and look the way they look and talk the way they talk. And sometimes what's interesting is that what happens when anyone sees anyone at any level that is any different, there's like a sense of like they can't be themselves, which is the craziest thing in the world, as if the person that maybe comes from a different background or a different country or a different perspective or a different job, as if they don't want you to be just a regular person. And I find that to be so interesting that we sort of seem to be like, okay, when we're around people that are like us, and as soon as it's not, all of a sudden, like we forget how to be regular.
Right. So sometimes I have that experience. I know, sometimes at a Shabbos table, let's just say that, I get where sometimes people say things that are not necessarily appropriate, right? And if they see me, they don't necessarily try to be so sensitive to the things that they're saying, right? And I've had to, at numerous times, tell people like, hey, what you're saying right now is not necessarily appropriate. Right. I'm sitting here. Would you, if it was reversed, would you want this to happen to you?
Yeah.
It's not a comfortable feeling.
Yeah.
Right? It's just not at all. Yeah. And so these are things that that's happened to me several times, and it's not a good feeling.
What can we do as a community to get better at it? What do you think are the things that we can do to be, because at the end of the day, like you said, in God's eyes, we're the same. Like in God's eyes, we're all just his children. And what are the things that you think we can do as a community to get better, to be more sensitive, to be more open to somebody else? And this, I think, applies at all levels, but in this particular area, what are some of the things from your perspective that you've experienced that you think you kind of wish people sort of knew?
So I wish that people knew about their own biases and they were able to self-reflect on that and to check their own biases in the things that they've grown up with, and kind of have some reflection and understand like that they may have different things or they may have different biases or different things that may be different, or they didn't know they had some prejudices, and you have to see that within yourself. Also, you have to want to make those changes, right? You have to want to, be mindful about that. Yeah. And to also put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Yeah. To also to be empathetic.
Yeah.
To show that respect. And to treat people, and that's me going back to treating people with respect and kindness. And if we're able to do that, then we're able to go much further.
Yeah. A special shout out to Elisa Bracha. That was an incredible. Again, we have a much longer interview for those that are interested. Keep an eye out. We have the opportunity to create much longer interviews, but we want to make sure that the show stays tighter. So please keep an eye out, and we'll be able to send out the longer interview with Elisa. And a special shout out to the whole Klein family, who I know very well, and special Shabbat Shalom to you guys. I want to turn to Kahoot. Let's get Kahoot going. I know that that's a interest of what we're doing on, and as the Project Inspire crew gets Kahoot going, I'm going to give a couple Shabbat Shaloms. Oh, here we go. It just happened so quickly. 750-5123. If you're out there, let's get the Kahoot players rolling. It's time to play some Kahoot. Here they come. While the players start rolling in, we're going to wish a couple more Shabbat Shaloms. Rivka Mansour, Shabbat Shalom to you. Shabbat Shalom to Ann in Las Vegas, to Frankos from Canarsie, my hometown. From the Shabbat Shalom from the Dukes in Thornhill. Tamar and Alon Cherkasov from Toronto. I love in Toronto. Shabbat Shalom to Judy and Louis Morris in Silver Spring. Shabbat Shalom to Goldie, to Jeff, to Barney Artel. Shabbat Shalom to Karen Kaplan and the family in Scottsdale. Shabbat Shalom to Ruth Kramer from West Orange. Okay, here we go. A couple more seconds and we're ready for Kahoot. Hugh Fibish from Manalapan. Shabbat Shalom to you. The Patulski family in Waterloo. Linda from Buffalo. Jen from Georgia. Loving the love, Bonnie from Austin, Texas. Thank you very much. Of course, Judy Hertzfeld. Shabbat Shalom to you and thank you for your kind words. Lily Tripp. Shabbat Shalom. Okay, we got our team. We got the crew. They're pulling in right now. I'll give you one more set. Okay, let's get rolling. We'll do it right now. Here goes. First question. How do you say summer in Hebrew? Aviv, Kayetz, Stav, or Choref? Aviv, Kayetz, Stav, or Choref? Answer quickly. Shabbat Shalom to Leah in Montreal. Remember, study one-on-one, 97,000. Just text one-on-one to 97,000. 9 more seconds left to get it in. Murray Levy, Shabbat Shalom to you. Kites is the right answer. Let's see how we do. Let's see what the first round brings us. RM, Hillary Patriot Rocks is right there. Passaic and Alejandro. Okay, here it goes. Next question. This former NBA All-Star now lives in Israel and plays for Maccabi Tel Aviv. Who am I talking about? Dirk Nowitzki, Yao Ming, Amari Stoudemire, or Dennis Rodman? This former NBA All-Star now lives in Israel and plays for Maccabi Tel Aviv. Who am I speaking about? Shabbat Shalom to Goldie's brother. Joe Salzman, Shabbat Shalom. Okay, how we doing over here? 5 seconds left. We're going to go a couple seconds to Facebook to wish Shabbat Shalom to those that are on Facebook. Answer is Amari Stoudemire, who's a great guy, by the way. Amari Stoudemire. 41. Okay, next question. Here we go. The Kahoot game continues. Passaic is on top. Which of these popular items was first developed in Israel? Hair gel, the plunger, Nintendo, or the cell phone? I love this. I love this. This is some good trivia that you can use. Which of these core items was developed in the Holy Land? Hair gel, the plunger, Nintendo, or the cell phone? Shabbat Shalom from Guadalajara. Shabbat Shalom. Excellent. It's the cell phone. The cell phone. Although from Jason Kessler, hair gel was perfected in the streets of Ben Yehuda. Excellent. Passaic, Joanna, Jamie's mom, Special K. Okay, here we go. Last question. Which of these famous events took place on Shabbat? July 4th, 1776, the signing of the Declaration of Independence. First of year one, the day of creation. July 20th, 1969, U.S. lands on the moon. Or year 2448 from creation, the giving of the 10 Commandments. Is it the Declaration of Independence, the first day of creation, we land on the moon, or God gives us the Torah? Which one is it? For the final question in Kahoot. 2 seconds left, and let's see what we got. The answer is the giving of the Torah took place on Shabbat. And let's go to our winners. Let's see. Let's see. Third place is Kaplan. Welcome to the leaderboard. Second place is Phoenix, Arizona. I don't know who that is. Phoenix, Arizona does well. And the first place is Joanna. Joanna, congratulations. Remember to email projectinspire.com for your gifts. Every week we give out gifts. We're now ready for our segment that everybody loves so much. It is with our partner, Jamie Geller. Check out the latest food that Jamie is bringing to us straight from Israel.
Thank you, Charlie. It is such an honor to be here on the show with you every single week. So I'm really excited about this week's recipe because it's hummus. And who doesn't love hummus? I mean, I love it. But what I love about it is that it's not meant to be enjoyed alone, right? Like no one sits down to a plate of hummus, except for me. But it's meant to be enjoyed by family.
Everyone, I'm Jamie Geller, and today we are making my lemon lovers hummus. We start with a 15.5-ounce can of chickpeas that rinsed and drained well. Next part, tahina. But this is 100% tahina or tahini paste, not the ready-to-eat tahini that you buy in the fridge section next to your ready-to-eat hummus. So just 1 tablespoon, and now we need 1 clove of garlic. Give it a smash. Just quickly release the paper, and that goes in. You want more garlic? Just put more in. Lemon lovers hummus, I promised you. 2 lemons. We're going to use the juice and the zest. So what you want to do, a little trick for juicing your lemons, put 2 hands on it, put all your body weight on it, and roll it. That will make the juice come out a lot easier when you go to juice it. Next, we want to get the zest. Now, be very careful when you're zesting that you only zest the yellow part and not the white pith. All right, now we juice. Cut your lemon in half. Quick way, catch the seeds in your hands and just let the juice go through. Another idea, hold it right side up and squeeze this way. This way, all the pits stay inside the lemon and the juice just comes out. We've got our salt. You need about 3/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. Cumin, it's got a really earthy, warm taste without being spicy hot. 1/4 teaspoon cumin in. Okay, now we're good to go, guys. With the food processor running, extra virgin olive oil, 1/2 cup. We want the olive oil to go in a steady stream. You can certainly do half water and half olive oil if you want, but I love the flavor for this. Now just at one point, we want to scrape down the sides of our bowl, just to take a little taste. And then you just let it run until it's smooth and creamy. My hummus is done. I'm going to show you how to make the perfect plate of hummus. And we're going to use the back of our spoon. Move the plate as you smooth out the hummus to the edges, creating almost like a well on the inside. Now inside this well, you can put anything your little heart desires, and I mean anything. Today I'm going to show you a nice little idea for the inside with chickpeas. So using whole chickpeas, we're going to add a little bit of za'atar. The za'atar is a Middle Eastern spice. It's got basil, oregano, thyme, savory, sesame seeds, a little sumac. I just add a little bit of salt and a little bit of olive oil to this. And this we're going to put into the center of the well that we created. Oh my gosh, this smells and looks divine. Okay, now we're just going to do a little bit of paprika, just around the sides. And then just a little bit of fresh chopped parsley or cilantro on top for a little bit of green. And tell me that is not the most beautiful, gorgeous, homemade hummus plate.
And thank you, Jamie, for that again. That did look absolutely delicious, as it always does. For more great videos, go to jamiegeller.com, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, at Jamie Geller, and at Julish by Jamie. My next guest is a friend of mine that I have spent yeshiva with decades ago, and I've had the opportunity to be at his school and just watch what he has done with one of the greatest schools we have in North America. It's one of the largest schools in New Jersey, and I was able to be there live and just see just what it looks like under his leadership. He's the head of school at the Rosenbaum Yeshiva of North Jersey, RY&J. He is a musmach. He has got his rabbinical ordination from REITs, which is a school in Yeshiva University, and he grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. Rabbi Price, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Charlie. Very excited to be here.
It is an honor to have you on, and it's good to see you. We're all watching what you're doing for our people, and we thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about your background and how you grew up, and give us a little bit more about you.
So I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. I went to the Hebrew Academy, Greater Washington, which is now known as the Berman Hebrew Academy. I'm one of six, and my family was in that area for a very long time. My grandparents on my mother's side were pillars of the community. My grandfather was a Rabbi. They were very, very involved in the shul and the ability for the community to thrive as it moved from Washington, D.C. to the suburbs. And on my father's side, I am a seventh generation Washingtonian. So on my father's side, we have been in the United States of America for a very long time, but that's just seven generations just in Washington.
Wow.
And so I have a lot of history in this country. And my parents, my mother grew up in the Jewish community, and my father was African American, part of the Washington D.C. community. And my parents eventually met at in D.C. Teachers College. My father, after leaving high school and going to the Navy and being in the submarine for a very long time, did a lot of reading, did a lot of searching, and he wanted to become a professor. That was his original dream. And he met my mother at DC Teachers College. And one of the stories that's so beautiful about my father's experience was my father did not have the easiest upbringing. And when he was in Teachers College, at certain parts of time during the year, his classmates would disappear. Some of them wouldn't be in class for a couple of days. And he would say to them, "Where were you?" And they would say, "Oh, it was a Jewish holiday. And so we weren't able to come to class for a couple of days." So my father actually was very nice. He took notes for them and gave them his notes when they were gone. And he said, "Well, what do you do during your holiday?" And the answer that struck him and will last with him for the rest of his life. Unfortunately, my father passed away a number of years ago. But the answer was, our holidays are about family time. And for my father, that was the most important thing in the world. To be in an environment, to be in a culture that valued family, that's what hit him. That's really what grabbed him.
So as a child growing up, an African-American father, Ashkenazi mother, what was it like growing up? What was your experience like?
I was very fortunate. Myself, my siblings, we were very fortunate growing up in Silver Spring, Maryland, because we were very much sheltered. It was a beautiful community, warm, accepting. I would say the best part about it was I was Daniel Price, and that's it. I wasn't Daniel Price, the son of the black Jewish dentist, which, by the way, my father became a dentist. He didn't become a professor. But that's something that always, I felt like it was amazing. I was able to be myself, and I wasn't put into a box, at least not in my early years. A little bit later on, when I became an athlete, then, sometimes that stuck out a little bit. But I always, I think about one of my earliest memories. When you're little, when you're like 6 and 7, that's when you start to recognize the difference between you and others developmentally. And you'll laugh at this, but one of my earliest memories of recognizing the difference between me and my friends was not my father. It was the fact that my mother wore a sheitel, and not every woman in the community wore a sheitel. So when I think back to that, I give props to the community, because my father stood out like a sore thumb, but it wasn't that. It was that was normal in my life as a child. And that was something, growing up in that bubble was really wonderful for me. And I would say for my siblings as well. Silver Spring was just a great community, and that allowed us to grow up and just feel like we were just surprise children.
Right.
We were unique in a sense, but our uniqueness wasn't something that was called to the front lines all the time.
Right. Your uniqueness wasn't based on skin color. Your uniqueness was based on what was on the inside, which is the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
And kudos to that community. Did you feel that way always? Was there other moments where that changed, or was that just sort of your general experience here?
It was definitely my experience growing up. Once we stepped out of our bubble, We all faced our different challenges. Not every community is like the Silver Spring community, and therefore, at different points in our lives, we did face those challenges. I would say only once in my school years do I ever remember a teacher saying anything inappropriate. We were just very, very sheltered. Unfortunately, sometimes when we stepped out of our community, out of our bubble, we saw some of the things. The language that people use, the terms that people use, weren't always appropriate, and was shocking considering how we were brought up and how accepted we were as a family.
Well, it's incredible that you say it the way you say it, which is you were given this gift the way it's supposed to be in a very micro environment, which is great. And it's just how we all have to be, in general. So it's this great opportunity for you to sort of get it right the first time versus, I guess, in a flipped environment, which is wonderful. It's amazing where you sit. You have this opportunity to be sensitive to things beyond what someone would have if they came from a more quote unquote typical place. And now you have the opportunity to educate so many people, the future, the Jewish future. You're the head of school. In the current environment, in your position, what's the message that you would give to your students? What's the message you would give to the viewers where we can all be bigger and better to make sure that every single Jew is being valued by what's on their inside, by their name, if you will, and not by anything else?
I think the first thing that I would say is something which was certainly stressed earlier on the program, is when you look at the Jewish people, we all come in different shapes and sizes. No one looks the same.
Right.
And I think that it struck a chord with me when you think about what the Torah says. The Torah is our guide. The Torah tells us everything that we need to do in order to accomplish God's will, God's Rebbetzin in this world. And the Torah tells us that we have to respect and love the Gerim, the converts, because we were also converts. What's the Torah saying there? The Torah saying is your experience where you grew up in your background is really no different than where a convert is coming from. And therefore, just like you want to be treated like everyone else, irrelevant of your color, your race, your height, your background, your size, that should be the approach we have to everyone.
Right.
So that's a message that I always, I think about in terms of, as an educator, as a head of school, someone who guides others, is that very, very important message of recognize that everyone has a place in this world. I always use a mushal of puzzles with the little children. We all have a puzzle, a piece of the puzzle we're adding, and we're trying to fill a Kadosh Baruch Hu's world with each one of our pieces. And each one of our pieces is unique. And if we don't offer our pieces, the puzzle's incomplete.
Amazing. Rabbi, thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you do. Continue inspiring so many people. And thanks for being a part of this program.
Truly my pleasure. Great seeing you, Charlie.
Great to see you as well. Good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom. It's really incredible. And he's exactly right. He's exactly right. The recognition that we are pieces of puzzles. This goes well beyond just a type of Jew. This is about how we raise our children. This is about how we see ourselves. This is how we walk through the streets. This is what God wants of us. We're unique. He compares us to the stars, because each star is totally unique. Remember, we've got a big week coming up here. So there's an incredible Mind Flex coming up this week. We've got this new program that I'm hosting on that's taking place this week. Look out for the ads on that. And in addition, please look out. There's there's a Q&A with the Rebbetzins that was very popular. That's coming out again this week. So please keep your eyes out for some more great programming from Project Inspire. It is now my honor to introduce an incredible guy. He's a rabbi, a motivational speaker, and a therapist. He has delivered inspiring lectures worldwide. He has a BA in liberal studies, a master's degree in education, and a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. He's currently the rabbi of the Village Shul and Asia Torah Learning Center in Toronto. Please welcome Rabbi Sittner to the program.
Hello, Charlie. Great to see you.
Oh, Rabbi, it's so good to see you.
I miss you.
Loving the office. Loving seeing you now. You're taking us in. This is it. This is the final moments of the show. We can almost taste the challah. It's almost in our mouths. Share with us a moment of your inspiration to enable us to bring in the Shabbos properly.
Thank you so much, Charlie. It's an honor to be here with you as always. I don't know what your experience has been like in the last couple of months, but for me, I'm missing having guests. Like I'm so used to having guests on my Shabbos table, and like all of a sudden to not have guests on Shabbos, it's just been weird. You experiencing the same thing?
Yeah, totally.
So it's nice to be able to go into Shabbos with everybody here. And if I could pretend for a second that you and everybody who's watching and listening are guests at my Shabbos table, just for like 3 minutes. Every week at my Shabbos table, Friday night, after we do the whole Shalom Aleichem, and we do the whole thing in Eishes Chayil, giving our children the brachas, I stand up and I hold my Kiddush cup. All right, I'll pretend. All right, this doesn't do it justice. I hold my Kiddush cup and I look at all my guests around the table. And I always, in fact, sometimes I even interact with them and I tell them, I point to people, I say, what do you do for a living? Guys, I'm a lawyer. What do you do? I'm a doctor, dentist, finance, right? And I ask people what they do. And after kind of going around the table a little bit, I point out that sometimes when we do something 5 days a week, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, we could begin to think that who we are is what we do. And what we do is who I am. My identity is I'm the doctor, I'm the lawyer, I'm the finance guy. That's me. Everybody knows me as that. And I always stop every Friday night and I look to my guests and I say, guys, you are not what you do. What you do is how you make a living. Who you are is so much more than that. Who you are is all the stuff that they talk about at your funeral. Not to get morbid, but I pointed out to them, I said, that's what it is. No one talks about what you did. Everybody says, wow, he was a great father. She was a great mother. She was a great sister, a good friend. Look what they did for the community. Look what they did for the Jewish people. That's what everybody talks about. They talk about your mission in life. Nobody talks about what you did for a living. I said, and Shabbos, we stop and we remember that Hashem created the world, that there's a creator in the universe, that there's a purpose to this world. And so every single Friday night, and we disconnect for 24 hours from what we do, and we connect to who we are, we connect to our purpose. And I remember one time I had two famous designers at my Shabbos table, and it wasn't even coordinated. And we'll just call them Michael Kors and Calvin Klein, okay? And we have these two guys at my Shabbos table, and as soon as I looked, I said, 1 second, Michael, you probably know Calvin. You guys are both. And then Michael stops me and he says, not on Shabbos, Rabbi.
Oh, I love it.
On Shabbos, I'm just Michael.
That's it.
And I remember there was actually a great line from Mark Twain where he said, the two most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you figure out why. And I feel like that's what Shabbos does. On a personal note, it reminds us every single week that I'm here for something so much more important than just making a living and surviving and just getting by. I have a mission in this world. I have an important contribution to this world, to the Jewish people and to humanity. And every Shabbos we're reminded of that role. But it's not just on a personal note. I think you can relate to this. It's also on a national level. Like as a nation, every Shabbos we're reminded that we have this crucial role in the world. Because we're supposed to be Or Lagayim. It's not just about us. It's about us and humanity. It's about being the type of people that affects the entire world. And I remember hearing a story, actually recently, my brother shared this story with me, with Howard Schultz. Howard Schultz was the former CEO of Starbucks, right? Yeah, okay. So he was in Israel and with a bunch of other very wealthy entrepreneurs and business people. And someone somehow set them up with Reb Nosson Tzvi Finkel, the Rosh Hashiva of the Mir. Yeah. And he was very ill at the time. And they get together and they're all sitting around not knowing what to expect. And Reb Nosson Tzvi walks in, he sits down and they see him trembling and shaking. And some of them kind of turned away. They didn't even want to look at him because it was just so uncomfortable. And he even said to them, look at me, look at me. So they all look at him and it was even harder for him to talk and it was harder for them to listen. And he looks at them one by one and he throws out one of the most difficult questions. He says to them, what's the lesson of the Holocaust? And they kind of sit there hoping it's, one of these, questions that they don't actually have to answer, maybe it's rhetorical. And he points and he says, what's the lesson of the Holocaust? So one guy says, never forget. He says, no. And he points to another and he says, what's the lesson of the Holocaust? He says, I don't know, we can't be victims. He says, no. And he goes around to each one, what's the lesson of the Holocaust? And then eventually he says, when all these Jews were getting on these cattle cars, going off to concentration camps, when they got off, they were handed one blanket for every 6 people. And at night, when it was freezing cold in the bunkers, and they laid there together, the one person who was handed the blanket had a choice. And the choice was, am I going to keep myself warm, or am I going to share the blanket with the other 5 guys? And Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel looked at them and he said, each one of these Jews who had the blanket shared it with the other 5. He said, the lesson is that we each have a blanket and we have to share it. And he turned to Howard Schultz and all these businessmen and he said, you all have a blanket. And when you get back to America, you got to share it with the rest of the Jewish people and share it with the world.
Incredible.
And I feel like Shabbos reminds us that we have that role. We have that role personally, but also nationally. As a Jewish nation, it's not just about us. It's about us sharing the blanket with the entire world. So it's an honor to be here. And God willing, we should merit to be able to share that blanket as we go into Shabbos together. And we should be an inspiration to each other, but to all of humanity as well.
You're awesome, Rabbi. Thank you so much for your kind words. So much love coming at you from all the chats in Toronto and all over the world. And thanks for your kindness. And
love to you, Charlie. Great to see you.
Thank you for leaving us with such an incredible message. And I want to end with that, with what the Rabbi just said. This is really the goal. This is what he's getting at is the point. It's understanding that each and every one of us have a blanket. We have something special about ourselves. Maybe the reason why God made us diverse is because we would just blend with everybody else if we weren't. And God wants us to fight past that confirmation bias of having me feel comfortable, to see the uniqueness, the blanket in each and every one of us, in everyone in our nation. What's amazing about Shabbat is all about seeing past the physical, the wine, the challahs, the slow down. Everything we've been doing on the show for the past few weeks has been conditioning ourselves to see past something. It's not just bread. It's not just wine. That's not just my wife. That's not just my kids. It's not just another day. What Shabbat does is Shabbat is there so that we can now start to take our physical eyes and start to make them more spiritual. God runs this world. We slow down and we get perspective. And spiritual eyes are hard, which is why we have it every week. It's a lifelong lesson and it's a lifelong mission. But those spiritual eyes not only belong to our lives, our careers, and our families, they belong to everybody around us. They belong to our nation. When we look around to the people in our nation, we have to always check ourselves, making sure that everybody that we look at them for who they are, not from where they're from, not from what the colors of their skin, but for their soul. And if we can be the nation that does that for everybody, not only are we doing good by others, we're doing good for ourselves. We're becoming the nation that God wants of us. And there is no greater day than Shabbat for those moments to reflect and to think about it and to come out stronger, greater, and clearer. For me and mine, and you and yours, Shabbat Shalom. To all those people we didn't reach Shabbat Shalom, we didn't get a chance to say Shabbat Shalom to. May this be a week, may this be a Shabbat that is restful, that brings you wisdom, that brings you clarity, that brings you empathy, that enables us to make everyone around us, whether they're living in our home, down our block, or in some part of the world, feel how unique and special they are. What our eyes can do in growing the people around us is unlimited. We should realize our power and share our blanket with everybody around us. I hope next week to see you in Jerusalem. But if not, I hope to see you here with God's help. Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos. Looking forward to seeing you then.
ba 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 ba.
You can be amazing, you can turn a phrase into a weapon or a drug. You can be the outcast or be the backlash of somebody's lack of love. Or you can start speaking up. Nothing's gonna hurt you the way that words do when they settle beneath your skin. Get on the inside, no sunlight, sometimes a shadow wins. But I wonder what would happen if you
say what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave with what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. Just wanna see you. Just wanna see you.
Everybody's been stared down by the enemy. Going for the fear and some disappearing. Bow down to the mighty. Don't run. Stop holding your tongue. Maybe there's a way out of the cage where you live. Maybe one of these days you can let the light in. Show me how big your brave is.
Say what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave with what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. And since your history is silence won't do you any good, did you think it would? Let your words be anything but empty. Why don't you tell them the truth? Say what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave with what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. I wanna see you be brave. See you be brave. Just wanna see you. Just wanna see you. Just wanna see you.
Dog section.